Do you experience sudden bleeding between your periods when you're not expecting it? Or do you have very heavy flow during your periods? Well, this is called abnormal uterine bleeding. And today I'm going to tell you the causes and what tests to do for this. I'm Dr. Bhargav Raut, the Chief Pathologist at Pathofast Lab and Diagnostic Center in Pune. Our lab does blood tests and various lab tests for many different conditions. Abnormal uterine bleeding or heavy bleeding during your periods can be because of a variety of causes. These include problems in your uterus or your reproductive tract like growths or cancers. It can also be very commonly due to hormones. It may also be because of the fact that your blood does not clot properly, and lastly but also very importantly due to different types of infections. Before we continue, I want you to take this simple checklist so that you know that you are looking at the right video. Number 1, do you find that you're changing your pads much more frequently than normal during your periods, or that the bleeding lasts much longer than usual, or that your cycles are very irregular or unpredictable? Then you definitely fit into what is called abnormal uterine bleeding, and I want you to follow along with me in this video. The first and most common cause is a problem with your thyroid. The thyroid is a gland in your neck, and as you know, it controls the entire metabolism of your body. Any problem in the thyroid, like if it is not working as much as it should or if it is overworking, will definitely cause a problem and disturb your normal cycle and can give you this bleeding. So, which tests can you do to check whether your thyroid is working properly? There are two blood tests. One is called the TSH, I've also included its normal range, and the other is called the FT4 or free thyroxine test. Both these are simple blood tests which you can do from the same blood sample, and any change in these values will point to something wrong with your thyroid, which you should then get treated. Do you sometimes find that when you were a child, when you had a small little cut or a bruise on your gums, it continued to bleed for a long time? Or if you get a simple cut on your elbows or a scratch somewhere, it continued to bleed for a long time? This can point to something wrong with the way in which your body clots the blood. Normally when we get a cut or a bruise, it should stop bleeding on its own in some time. If this doesn't happen, this is called a bleeding disorder and can be the reason why your period flow is so heavy. So, which blood tests can you do to check whether you have a bleeding disorder? It's a simple test. All you need is a single sample of blood, and we will do 3 tests called the platelet count, the PT test and the APTT test. Now these are all simple blood tests, but if your platelet count is very low or your PT or APTT values are higher than normal, it can point to something wrong with your way in which your body clots the blood, and you need to consult a hematologist to get this treated. Without getting this treated, your heavy flow during your periods will not stop. The next common cause of abnormal or heavy bleeding in the periods is because of something called PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. In this syndrome, there are many small little boils or cysts all throughout your ovaries. Together with this, there are also high levels of male hormones in your blood, and this disrupts your normal cycles. To check for PCOS, we advise a couple of blood tests which I've included on this page. These are all hormones. Basically, these include the LH and FSH. It also includes the total testosterone level and the level of something called the AMH or anti-Mullerian hormone. We have separate videos on each of these. You can go into them in detail. I've included the links. But one thing that you have to also look for is whether you have signs like excessive hair growing on your face, that you have put on weight excessively, or that you also have mood swings. All these things together with acne could also point to a more confirmatory diagnosis of PCOS. So do check for these signs in your own self and get these tests done so that you will know whether you have PCOS. The most important thing in these 3 tests is the testosterone level, which if it is higher than normal definitely points to something like PCOS. The next common cause of abnormal bleeding is something called the prolactin hormone. Now this is a hormone which is released from your brain, and it is only required in mothers who have just given birth to a child because it stimulates the release of the milk from the breast for the infant. But in those women who are not pregnant, sometimes this prolactin level rises a lot, and this completely disrupts your cycle and can cause cycles in which you do not even ovulate, and this will cause unpredictable or heavy bleeding in your periods. So which test can you do to check for whether this prolactin level is normal in your blood? Well, it's a simple blood test. They will take your blood sample and measure the level of the prolactin hormone. Usually if this is more than 20, it is a sign that the prolactin level is high. Together with this, your doctor may also ask you to do a MRI of your brain to check whether the size of the gland which normally secretes this prolactin has become too big. This is called a prolactinoma. So there is only these two tests to do for this particular condition. The last but not the least important cause are infections. Sexually transmitted diseases or even other bacterial infections can also irritate your entire reproductive tract and can cause this kind of heavy or unpredictable bleeding. So we will give you some tests now that you can do to check for these. The best and simplest test to check whether you have a STI or a STD, especially in your reproductive tract, is the chlamydia and gonorrhea PCR test. This is a simple test that we do on your urine sample to check for the presence of chlamydia and gonorrhea, which are basically some kinds of infections which can cause inflammation, obstructions and other problems in your reproductive tract and give you very painful periods. Together with this, we also advise something called the Trichomonas test. Trichomonas is a parasite which can get transmitted sexually and can cause a lot of problems in your reproductive tract and give you painful periods. This is also done on a urine sample. So you can get these 3 tests done on a simple single urine sample and you will know whether you have any of these infections.